guess what? It's been 3.5 weeks, and I'm feeling better. I don't feel nearly as sick or anything like that. So we're going to start tearing apart this Fusion. If you guys may be able to see from the angle, I can't really see from where I'm standing, but I mean from the camera. I've already taken off the front bumper and the hood. Now, the reason for the front bumper is I had a guy interested in it, so I took the front bumper off. I was going to sell it for $20, the entire front bumper with the fog lights and everything, and then he never showed up. So, joke's on me for taking the time to get something out. Now, I've never taken a Ford Fusion apart before, but something tells me it's like pretty much every other car I've ever taken apart. And all I'm going to do is basically just pull out every bolt. The stuff that I'm looking to get rid of today is pretty much everything I don't need in the front, and I'm going to figure out what I do and what I don't need. I'm going to probably going to lose the radiator support and the actual radiator today. I found the bumper on the front of this. I don't really like it. It is not a Mazda 3 bumper. That is for sure. It actually looks a lot weaker. But I'm still going to keep it in my bumper pile because you never know. But I'm going to go through some of the things that I plan to do for this car. And cars these days, I believe, maybe like 05, 07 and newer, are built a little bit differently. Crash test regulations in the mid-90s were a lot different than what they are now. And I think that the actual concept of a crumple zone in the 90s was pretty much unheard of. This is an 07, and the way that they've done that is they've actually made bumper shocks on the front of the frame that are designed to compress in and then push your frame out to help absorb the impact. So we're going to get rid of those completely. I'm just going to start taking off pretty much everything. I'm going to save all my hardware, obviously, because I don't really know what I'm going to need and what I'm not going to need, but I know I'm not going to need this, so that's out of the way. The other reason I've taken off the hood is because now you guys can see everything that I'm doing, and I can see what I'm doing. So what we're after today is just basically get everything that we do not want in this car, off of this car. The windshield wipers on it don't look that bad. I might just borrow these for my daily driver. It's that time of year where it's slushy and foggy and disgustingly snowing out, so I go through wipers pretty quick, especially when I don't de-ice my vehicles. I just turn them on and spray the windshield washer fluid until the windshield gets clean because I don't care. There's been some questions arise about this car on the internet, and a lot of you guys kind of have, I'm going to put it as low expectations for this car. And some of the reasons I've heard is everywhere from a plastic air intake, which I do agree is not the best. But nowadays, car companies are trying to find ways to make their cars lighter and cheaper to build, and switching a lot of their parts to plastic, mostly the ones that don't need heat. That is pretty weird. This thing has an air cooler for the alternator. So I guess the alternator is so close to the exhaust manifold, when the air comes in, it's got a cooler to cool the alternator. So something tells me maybe alternator overheating was an issue with these. A lot of plastic. But what was I saying? A lot of car manufacturers, I think, are trying to make it so that the cars are lighter and lighter and cheaper to make. And to do that is, one, add more plastic. The more and more plastic on a vehicle, the lighter they are. Like even the bolts, all these bolts are usually 10 mil. On this one, we're dropping down to 8. So like I was saying, today our main goal is to try to get as many parts off this car as I can without trying to damage too many of them. Because you never know, I might be able, oh, this one's already been replaced from a scrap here. Kind of takes a little bit of value away from it if it's already been replaced. So all I'm trying to do is try to make some money off some of these parts. I paid quite a heavy penny for this thing, and I like to try to make some of my pennies back. Oh, it just came out. This one here has been replaced as well. It's not a good sign when you're taking the car apart and you're already finding parts that have been replaced. Because that means either accident, fender bender, or you can be like my wife and just replace them because you think they were dirty on her old car. So there's the two headlights. I guess it's time for the bumper. 14 mil, 12. No, 13. What we're trying to do right now is pull the whole front end off the car. By pulling the front end off, we can get the rad support, the radiator, the air conditioning, all that fun stuff off, in all one piece. When they install these, they're called front end modules, usually called FEMs. And the reason why a lot of manufacturers are changing to a design like this is because it saves time. You can get them built at an outside factory, pay the workers less, and then it comes in on a transport and all you do is bolt it up. Not that long ago I installed the line at Honda, where the Honda Civic and the CR-V are now have front end modules. Now, I'm not really taking this apart the way it should be taken apart, but it is coming apart. So, looks like just some radiator hoses. I'm a little nervous that this thing still has air conditioning. Pretty sure the owner did tell me that the air conditioning worked as well, so we'll see about that. I don't want to fill the shop up with AC dust. Yay, the AC doesn't work. Makes it a lot easier for me. Okay, so there's one air conditioning line. There's two. I got the front end module off the front of this, and you know what? I'm not really liking this thing. This thing pretty much reminds me of a Mazda 3. The frame looks tough. I'm not going to dispute that. This frame looks super tough. It's got quite a bit of layers in it. I've already shined a light down inside these holes. I think the frame is super tough. I think the subframe, it honestly looks pretty tough. Yes, where the mounts come up is a little weak, but if you wanted to run threaded rod, you could run threaded rod from the sub to the mount to the frame and then up. Some stuff that I really don't like is pretty much everything I didn't like off the Mazda 3. There was quite a bit of things I didn't like off the Mazda 3 other than the bumper. I don't like this bumper. Starter, alternator, starter, air intake, and oil filter are located right at the front. Now this oil filter is not as open as my Mazda, and I don't know if you guys know this, but that's what ended up taking out my Mazda 3 in the demolition derby world. Was somebody knocked off my oil filter because it's an aluminum housing that bolts to the front of your block, and then it's got an oil filter that screws in from the bottom. This one here is actually a canister, so it slides right inside, but It's the same design, and it's a very crappy design. The other thing I really don't like is the shifter linkage. The shifter linkage is right here, and it's nothing but plastic. So I'm not happy with that. This is the actual piece right here that took my wife's Mazda 3 out. She got hit, it broke the shifter linkage. She was in drive, but because I didn't put a hot wire to the starter, she could only start it when it was in neutral or park with the key. So because this broke off in drive, she could no longer start the car, and the car did die because the battery arced out, but that's a different story. The other thing I really don't like, I don't know if I said this already because I lost track, is the aluminum motor mounts. Now, right over here, it is a much, much larger aluminum motor mount than what is on the Mazda 3, and it looks like a much better design, believe it or not. It's much, much beefier. It looks like it's a 3-part mount, so honestly, I still don't like it. I do not like this motor mount. This motor mount over here I don't like, but I don't know. Wiring seems to be super easy so far. So far I've just moved it. The thing will still start up. I haven't tried it, but I'm willing to put money onto it. Yep, it fires right up. I did forget I cut the transmission lines because they went to the front end module. I did cut the power steering lines because they went to the front end module. Everything went to the front end module. So I'm gonna start tracing some wires back, cutting out some stuff. I'm gonna see if this thing will run without the mass airflow sensor inside of here, but I highly doubt it will, so that'll probably have to stay. Let's take the mini grinder and cut it out like I do with the Toyota V6s. I'm gonna loop the transmission lines right about now. So this one here, it's going to take some effort to figure out this car. If you were willing to pull this motor and put a Toyota Camry motor into it, because everybody loves Toyota Camrys, I really think that the motor would be much farther back. You have to take out this here. And the reason I'm suggesting this is because a lot of guys I know are taking the Toyota motors out of 92 to 2001 and they're putting them in 02 and newer Toyota Camrys. And I know a lot of guys are taking the aluminum motors now and starting to shove those into Camrys, the 3.1s, because then you can get the Zerk cages and all that. Is this going to replace Toyota Camrys and Luminas? No. No, it's not. But is this an alternative? Maybe. When the Toyota Camry stockpile starts drying up in the backyard and Ford Fusions start coming a lot more readily available, this might be something to look into for the future. The motor, I think, is going to be a weak point. The no rad support, I think, is going to be a weak point. But if you're willing to do a lot of work, this may be a feasible car. I don't know how to say the word. But we're going to do the same thing that we do to our Toyotas to this. We're going to try our best, do a lot of stuff that is unreally charted, and go from there, because it's all a learning curve. That's all you guys can do is learn as you go, right? So we got the front end of this car torn apart a bit. I'm going to loop some lines, and that's about it. I've learned a little bit from my last Mazda 3 motor, and that was they do not like running out of coolant. So when they run out of coolant, they start knocking hard. They take 0 W20, actually this one's 5 W20 oil, so they're very thin oil to start with. So they do not like thick oil, they do not like a lot of things, they're very temperamental. They do have limp mode, so we're going to have to put an extra temperature sensor into this and all that other fun stuff to try to keep it out of limp mode as much as possible. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to do with this to make it a feasible car, and I'll start going through all that. But it's probably tomorrow's video. So thanks for watching, guys. And we'll see you back here tomorrow.